All right, Battletech fans, so here we are with episode 2 of Battletalk, and today I have with us our special guest, Adam of DreamMadeProductions, who runs a YouTube channel that does battle reports, campaign reports, things like that. So tell us about DreamMadeProductions. Tell us what you do, tell us kind of how you got started, that sort of thing.
Well, DreamMadeProductions was a project that I had been putting off for years. I initially wanted to do YouTube back when I really started first watching it back in 2008 or 2009. But I was in college at the time and trying to work a job, and I honestly, everything that I have learned, I've taught myself. I started off with, I never even had a video camera before this started. So back then I put it off, and a little while ago, about 2 years ago or so, I kind of started with a podcast because it was mostly just recording, learning how to do sound edit first.
Sure.
And then I decided, I had shot a Battletech game several years before with an old crappy webcam.
Okay.
And I thought, well, let me try a battle report. I had seen several channels do battle reports, and I liked them. And I figured I would give my hand at it, but I always noticed it was, with most of them, or at least ones I've seen, they would just say, hey, I'm Billy, I'm Bob, we're going to play some Battletech, roll some dice. And it was like, okay, why are these, who are we watching? Why are these forces fighting? Why is it just they're shooting each other and nobody's retreating or, you know, anything? So I decided I was going to put some story with it. And then the few channels that I saw that would put a paragraph of story, it just seemed to help it so much.
Right.
So being a big fan of Battletech, I wanted to put the story in there too.
So you were talking about having wanted to start this channel for quite some time. My question is, what is it that inspired you to want to start it in the first place?
Well, part of it was, you know, I'm an accountant by trade, and I do that for a paycheck, but it's one of those jobs, I've been doing it for 10 years, and I'm like, you know, I really would like to be one of those people that wake up in the morning and go, yay, I get to do my work today.
Right?
Instead of, man, you know, driving off that bridge, would that really be that bad?
The call of the void.
So I really, you know, back then I was looking at it, but I was like, I just don't have time. I'm finishing my schooling. I'm trying to get a job in my field. And, you know, in a way I kind of regret not getting started back then, but at the same time, I was broke back then, whereas now I at least have a little bit of money so that I'm not, you know, living hand to mouth, just trying to feed myself.
Right.
So, and then, you know, watching the early YouTubers, you know, like James Rolfe, the AVGN.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
You know, Pat the NES Punk, Nostalgia Critic, all those guys that kind of started the whole YouTube thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was lucky enough one time to get to talk to Linkara for 15 minutes at a con. You know, one of these days I'd really like to meet James and get an hour of his time just to talk. But
oh yeah, just to pick his brain, man, that would be amazing.
Or even just be like, yo, tell me about your journey, man. You know, just anything. But you know, I'd like to get to talk to Tex one of these days. That was really hearing him do it, between him really kind of rekindling my love for Battletech, because it's hard to play Battletech when you work, you know, 6 and 7 days a week.
Sure.
To have him really bring this back up to my mind and be like, yeah, I really miss that setting. I really miss not just playing the game, but being engrossed in that fiction. Excuse me. Between him doing that, having a little more time on my hands, and there was a guy, I guess I can give his channel a shout out. I don't think he's made videos in years, but I used to watch his battle reports, and oh, I can't remember his name.
Ouchies?
Ouchies, yeah. Ouchies Bat Reps. He was one of the guys that I was watching that did battle reports that I was like, I could do that. I could do a battle report like that. And I really, enjoyed his battle reports, and I think in one of my videos I asked him to come back. I don't know whatever happened to him or anything like that. I hope he's fine and wish him the best. But man, that was one of the things that really got my gears turning. As in, I could do battle reports. I could take all these board games that have been collecting dust for 25 years and start doing something with them that's more than maybe I get to play them once in a while. Maybe I can do something to create something with them. I finally got into it. Also being inspired because for a long time I couldn't even find Battletech at all.
Right.
The local stores were like, what do you mean? Battletech's been out since FASA went out of business. Battletech hasn't been around since the 90s. You could bring in flyers from Catalyst and they'd look at it and go,
right.
Are you really? You want to buy some Warhammer? How about some Warhammer?
Yeah. No.
Whereas Battletech, I love Battletech. I have since the 90s, and I guess technically since the 80s. Though, back then I was just a kid, so.
Sure.
But, I have a small collection of Battletech things, so that's kind of what I decided to go at. And I just said, screw it. One day I'm just going to put the time aside, and in my my ending, I often say I only honestly thought I would have one sub, and that was my mom. And that's the truth.
Right.
I never thought anybody would watch it. I never imagined that people would watch and start posting, hey, I like this, that I enjoyed this. So that just really made me determine I'm going to try. I haven't always succeeded, but I'm really going to try to put one of these out a week at least. So.
Right. That's a lofty goal. I sometimes I have problems putting things out once a month. So, but I mean, we're traveling on the road and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of times I just go, okay, I've got to take a break. I got to get away from this. So I totally understand that. Now that's kind of interesting that you talk about that part that's rewarding to you, but what I guess I want to know is, what would you say some of your favorite things have been about this whole experience so far, and how do those things weigh against any challenges that you faced?
I love being able to be creative. I playing the game, obviously I love playing Battletech. I wish I could play more, but
Right.
I really enjoy the chance at just taking the game and then coming up with a story, coming up with characters, doing some research, because I always try never to conflict with canon.
Sure.
I also try, if I create a character, that they never do anything important enough that it could conflict with canon in the future.
And so what would you say your biggest challenges have been so far?
Oh, just learning. Just like I said, before I started this, I had never shot a scene before. I had never edited a video before. I had never really edited sound before. And really the way I've been doing it is just reading the help files, going on and looking for answers in message boards, watching YouTube tutorial videos, and trying to piece everything together. I really didn't, I kind of underestimated exactly how much is involved in it.
Oh, yeah.
And also not having gone to film school or even really know anything about film. I'll try to find an answer to something, but I don't know what it's called. I'll be like, how do I make the thingamajiggy move? That's not a good way to look
Yeah,
something
sure.
up on in a tutorial. So
Right.
the technical side of it's been the hardest.
I did the same thing. Like when I first started, I just bought a computer and I went on YouTube and said, what are some good video editing softwares that are, easy for idiots? And because that's what I was an idiot. And, this is what I came up with. And I said, okay. And I just started poking around with it. And if you go back and watch the first season, like you can see every single episode I learned something different.
Yeah.
Where the end is like nowhere near what the original one was. So dude, I totally feel you on that.
Oh yeah, you can go back and watch mine as I changed. The first episodes of the David campaign, there were no sound effects. There was the sound volume was up and down, and I still kind of struggle with getting that set so that everything's nice and the same volume. you know, there was most of the images I would throw up would be just static images.
Mm-hmm.
There was no movement, no anything. It was just boop, here's an image, boop, here's an image. Whereas now I'm going in and I'm trying to move the images, always having some kind of movement there because it just really helps the video. Going in and adding sound effects. I didn't think adding the old Mech Warrior 2, Mech Warrior 3, Mech Warrior 4 sound effects would add so much to the videos. So many people enjoyed that. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that pops. I feel dumb that I didn't think of that. Like, in fact, I was going to ask you if you'd have any issue with me saying, hey, can I do that? That's really cool. I really like that.
No. I've got all the sound effects saved. If you want, I can find a way to send them to you. I'm also right now going through all of my old Battletech books and trying to scan them in and cut out images so I have an art archive, an art library. Because, you know, going on and trying to do searches for old Battletech art in Google and Bing and stuff is just, it's real hit or miss. Mm-hmm. So it's so much better. And also funnier when you pull up an old 80s Battletech person.
Right, yeah.
You're like
8,000
wow, this is the 31st century?
Sure. There's been a couple of live streams Tex has done where they talk about some of the art. And I remember that as a kid. I can't remember who he was with, though.
The guy that does Duncan Fisher.
Yeah. George Ledoux.
Yeah. That was hilarious. I had that on in the background, and I was cleaning house or something, and I had to actually stop and watch some of it. I was like, wow, some of that art is pretty bad.
See, as a kid, I just looked at it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I never thought about it, you know? And then as an adult, like when I open up some of the older, like, City Tech books or whatever, I'll be like, gosh, how many teeth do you have? Wow.
Your hair.
You know, gosh dang, all right, well. It was what it was, and I try not to go too hard in the paint on these things. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny in retrospect, yeah. So going forward, let me ask you this. What are your plans for the future of your channel? Do you intend to do another campaign? Do you intend to do some more funny Solaris 7 type duels like what you recently just did with the Atlas and the battalion of Stingers?
Well, that was something I had been meaning to do for a while. For a long time when I was a kid, the only Battletech book I had was the 3025 Tech Manual. Sure. So I would just sit there and read it. And always when I got to that line, I was like, are you sure? I mean, a company, maybe a battalion, that's a lot. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to run this experiment to see how it goes. And when I started it, it was literally just, I'm going to shoot the video and see where it goes. Yep. And then I was watching the video back, and I was like, well, how am I going to explain this? And I'm like, Solaris 7.
There you go.
I was like, that's the only way this makes sense. And then immediately I was like, well, how am I going to do this? And I was like, I just kept having flashbacks of like Celebrity Death Battle on MTV.
Sure, yeah. I know that.
And like really cheesy WWF, WCW, whatever, back in the day. And I was like, okay. And having watched Tex and him do commercials, I was like, I got to put some commercials in there. And initially I intended to do one like every other round or something like that. I have a ton of them. Yeah. But I was running out of time. And my favorite part of the whole video is the sponsored moment of silence, because what's more inappropriate than that?
Right? Exactly. God, I do professional wrestling ring announcing, and let me tell you, they hate silence. They keep talking, just keep talking. I don't care what you say, just say something. And they used to tell me, can you fill 5 minutes? And it's like, back in the day, I didn't think 5 minutes was very long, but then when you have to talk for 5 minutes, believe me, that's an incredibly long time.
Yeah, talk about nothing for 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. I used to do what I would call Chris Farleying, where it's like, do you remember the old SNL skits where he used to be like, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that thing? Yeah, remember that? That was good, wasn't it? I would just be Chris Farleying the whole time. Yeah, who remembers this particular pay-per-view event? Oh, man. Yeah, do you remember that thing that happened? Yeah, that was really cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was sort of like this, but not really. So,
And anyway, we got the DVDs on sale right over there. So, yeah, I know that feel.
I intend to keep doing, like I said, at least one battle report a week. Can't, work schedules and all the kind of chaos that picks up. I can't really commit to that, but I'll do the best I can. I do intend to do another campaign. That'll be another test of the campaign system that I wrote. Right now, I'm mulling over some of the stuff that were causing problems. One of the biggest things, I'm going to be putting out a video soon that will be kind of the final closure of the David campaign. That'll be me explaining more how the rules actually worked, pulling up some of the spreadsheets and showing people, okay, here's the battle in the numbers,
Yeah,
and
that's my favorite part.
And then showing some of the rules and saying, okay, these are the rules that worked well for me. For example, one of the things that I really had a problem with was promoting or improving pilots, improving mech warriors.
Okay.
Because to get that where you just pay X to lower the score from a 4-4 to a 3-3 or a 4-4 to a 3-4 or whatever, that was very, when I wrote it, I thought it made sense. But then when I started playing it, it was like, well, wow, that's really under cost.
Right.
Everybody will have 0-0 pilots in the next few missions. And, a 0-0 pilot, there's only supposed to be like 2 or 3 of those in the entire galaxy. So I had to go through and figure out, okay, we've got to have this be an exponential increase. And in the middle of doing the campaign and everything going on, I just didn't have time to sit down and really think, how expensive is this going to have to be? It shouldn't be where, you got to spend a bazillion points to get from a 3-3 to a 2-2, for example. But at the same time, at some point, the pilot has to start becoming more valuable than an Atlas.
Okay.
A 0-0 pilot is going to be, in a lot of ways, more valuable than the Atlas that they drive, because you can put a 0-0 into a Locust and they're going to be dangerous.
Sure.
So trying to figure that part out and a few other things, trying to come up with more missions, because I have a list of missions, of generic missions that I've created. Come up with more of those, try to balance them a little better. And after I kind of get everything rewritten and it working again, then I'm going to unveil my next campaign, which is going to be much larger than the David campaign. And it's going to be set in a very interesting time in Battletech history. I don't think it'll be a time period that many things have been set in, and it'll allow me to move to the next phase of testing the system once we start introducing advanced technology. I started playing in the Secession Wars. I love playing in the Secession Wars. It's usually my default thing to go to, but I'm not one of these people that's like, you darn kids and your clanners and your Word of Blake. Like, I'll play Battletech in any setting. You'll forgive me if I'm like, I don't know what this thing does. Right,
yeah, same. Too far past 3067. I'm just like, explain that to me. I'm old.
So, I'll play in any setting, but I got to kind of introduce this stuff one step at a time. So I'm going to be going in, and it'll be a time period where there is advanced technology. It's around. There'll be enough of it, but I'm not playing with so much stuff that it's overwhelming. So
right.
It'll be set in a time period that I think a lot of people will find interesting. And when I do it, I'm going to create more than just a track system of trading back and forth with missions. They'll actually be story-specific missions. So it won't just be the same couple of missions, scan building. It'll build up to, oh, by the way, there is this mission that's here just for this campaign.
Oh, okay.
That was ultimately my goal of creating this system, was to then be able to put out campaigns that people could then play through And then, you know, there would be key story parts in it. You would use the generic missions until you reach the point where you have enough points or whatever has happened that then triggers, okay, this is this big mission that takes place.
Yep. All right. So do you plan to do, because I know you were talking about stories and things like that, do you plan to branch off from the battle reports at any point in time and do videos about specific sets of lore that really interest you?
I'll do lore on occasion. Like I said, I don't think I can do as good a job as some of the other lore people out there. For one, I just don't have the time to do all the research.
Sure.
One of my first videos, there was a friend of mine, Tara. She does streaming stuff on her PS4. And she was like, hey, you know, I don't know anything about Battletech. I'd love to watch your videos, but she knew nothing. Okay. And that kind of got me into, well, what if somebody finds my channel and is like, what's all this? Yep. So I tried to do a basic Battletech lore video, and that was one of the first ones I did. And I tried to cover it as if you were maybe not just some guy off the street, but like a military guy off the street, you know, somebody that either is in the military or is a military aficionado or something. Sure. That would, in 3025 or 3039, would have everything that they need to know to watch basically the David campaign or any Battletech battle report videos and know enough to kind of follow along. Well, you know, I did a lot of research. I pulled a bunch of art. I made the video. And when doing my research, I read that the Terran hegemony created the HPG network. Yep. And I said, okay, well, the Terran hegemony created it. That must have been in the time of war or sometime. Because if not, the Star League would have created it. Yep. So I wrote the video, did the stuff, and I figured that was one of the reasons that the great houses and humanity started building back up, was because now you had the opportunity to centralize control again, only to find out, oh yeah, the Terran hegemony did create the HPG network during the Star League era. So right. One of my first videos has a pretty glaring mistake in it. In that, I kind of said, well, that was 500 years ago by 3028, so maybe people think that, you know.
Sure. Gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, you know, that's one nice thing about kind of doing it as an in-universe, because, spoiler alert, Comstar is not a disarmed telecommunications company.
No, they are not your friend.
But in my video, I mentioned, oh yeah, Comstar, from the point of 3025, is just, you know, they have some antiquated battle mechs protecting the solar system, because that's what people would have believed back then.
Right, sure, yeah. That's what they'd like you to believe anyway.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, I've got some projects. There's some other stuff I want to do. Some of my equipment is really holding me back. So, you know, right now I'm still using an old webcam. For a while I was using a Chinese camcorder to get the video, but I switched back to using a webcam. It was just easier to deal with. One of these days I really want to get a good camcorder so I can get better video. I have some ideas of actual videos to make. I do eventually intend to expand out. I'm a big fan of pretty much all sci-fi. You know, I love Star Trek, Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, all that kind of stuff. Real big fan of old Star Wars, Lucas Star Wars. I have a Star Wars game that I created. I don't know if you remember a few, maybe 10, 15 years ago, Wizards of the Coast put out Star Wars Starship Battles. Okay, it was a miniatures game. It only came out with the base set and one expansion. You bought them sort of like Magic cards. You got packs, but instead you got little models. And it sucked. It was terrible. It was like, you know, what direction you're facing, how far away you are, really doesn't matter. So it's like you put your pieces on the board, you move them around a little teeny bit, and whoever rolls the higher number wins. Like it's not, there wasn't much to it, but the models were beautiful. I mean, not for what they were beautiful, and I really liked them, and I liked collecting them. But I'm like, I got to come up with something to do with this, because this system is just terrible.
Sure.
So when I was in community college, I had a professor that was really big into World War II, Pacific, miniatures games. And remembering back from that, I couldn't find the actual rule system he used, which I think was Rising Sun, Bloody Sky, or that name has stuck with me for 20 years for some reason, but I couldn't find anything about it, so it's probably not the actual name. But I remembered enough about the system that I was like, I want the dog fights to matter. I want the capital ships to show up, and when a Star Destroyer shows up, people go, how are we going to deal with this problem?
Sure.
And so I started using the rules that were in the actual little booklet, combining that with the World War II dogfighting rules. And I tried to create something that was a lot like playing the old X-Wing games, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter games on the tabletop. And that's been through 3 revisions so far. In the middle of coming out with a final version of that. So eventually I'll probably do some Star Wars battle reports. The initial name of it was Star Wars Advanced Starship Battles, because it was sort of based on the rules that Wizards of the Coast made. But at this point it's so different, I renamed it to Star Wars Fleet Action.
Oh, okay.
So that's on the back burner right now, but that'll eventually, I'll be throwing some Star Destroyers and some TIE Fighters and X-Wings and Mon Calamari cruisers down and seeing how that goes.
Well, that's super cool. I love that. I love, different things like that, because my channel's just Battletech, and I'm like, I've got one spot in my heart, and it's for this thing, and this is what I'm going to do. But I definitely love to see other channels going, okay, well, we do Battletech, but we also do other stuff, and they give that kind of love to all the different things that they like. I think that's super cool.
Oh, I love games. I always have since I was a kid. I would have my little G.I. Joe figures, and I'd be like, everybody else would be poo and throwing them around and stuff, and I'd be like, no, that weapon is stronger than this weapon, and this one, even as a kid, sure. I wanted rules. So
right.
I love board games. I don't have a super huge collection of them, but I have a pretty sizable collection of board games. So eventually I want to start doing battle reports on all these board games I have. I have like Descent. If you really want to go old school, one of my first games that got me into like Dungeons and Dragons and Battletech and stuff was Hero Quest. That game has seen better days, but I still have my old childhood copy of Hero Quest. So eventually, there'll probably be some game nights where I hook up the camera and get some people over to play that. And I'm not sure how much I can come up with a story for Settlers of Catan, but
we tried that. A buddy of mine came over and we played a game of Settlers, and I was just like, how can I make this Battletech related? And so I just called it Settlers of the Clans. And but that was literally my first game and only game to date of playing that. And so I didn't know anything about it enough to make a quote unquote battle report about it. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to film this and we're just going to put it up there as a long play. And well, there it is. And so we just each played a different clan that was like off-settling the home worlds, and that was as close as we got. So I feel you there.
Yeah, eventually I want to bring my podcast back. I had big plans for that at one point. I've got several XLR microphones and stuff sitting around here. I was going to have actual guests over, but COVID destroyed that. Work schedules destroyed that. So it's, I hope that comes back at some point, which will basically just be us bunch of assholes talking about random nerdy stuff for an hour or so. Talk about video games, anime, board games, comic books. I even had my dad said he'd come up and we'd have an around the farm segment. He's a farmer.
Okay.
We talk about his chickens and stuff, I guess, for
nice.
Once in a while. Just whatever we want to talk about, but that's probably going to be even further off in the future than for right now. So
right on.
I have big plans, big plans. It's just finding the time and knowledge to do it. I
know that feel. I often tell folks, if I had not been laid off because of the pandemic and had a savings built up, I probably wouldn't have started this show. Like, I wouldn't have done Battlebound. It was something that was kicking around in my head for a good 6 to 8 months before I started it. And I, just like you, I was like, dude, I'm on my feet all day. Like, I get home, I've got enough energy to eat, chill for 2 hours, and go to bed. And that's it. I don't got the wherewithal for anything else. And after I got laid off, I was like, dude, I got nothing but time. Like, I have no excuse not to learn this now. So that's when I started dorking around with all that stuff. But yeah, time, I don't want to take too much of your time talking about me. This is about you. But time, I totally understand. I feel you on that.
Oh yeah, and the pandemic has quote helped with that some too, because my work hours have fluctuated. You know, there are times when I can sit down and go, okay, well, you know, I'm only working half hours this week, so I can sit down and really put some time to this. And then there's other times where it's like, okay, well, this is going to be a 60-hour work week. So
right. Yeah, in your host.
You know, in general, having more time has helped. I've had like issues before of when I've wanted to do this where I've been working like 2 jobs and going to school. So it's one of those things where you get up first thing in the morning at like 6:37 in the morning, you go into work, you're at work all day, you get out of work, at one point go to your second job, get off that, it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night when you walk in the door, you eat something, and then you're like, well, do I sit down completely exhausted and try to learn to do something which I'm not going to remember the next day, or do I just eat, watch an hour of TV, and go to bed? So
that is exactly where I was at, man. Exactly. Like, to the T, that was how it was.
It was one of those things, too, where it was like, you know, I'm not a gambler. I don't play the lottery. I don't have money to put into a bunch of investments. But I was like, this is my lottery ticket. I'm going to take the time. I'm going to put out some videos, and I'm going to see if I can't get somebody to watch them. And I'm going to see if one of these days I can't have enough money coming in from ad revenue or sponsorships or Patreon, once I figure that out, or whatnot, to have enough to just eat ramen noodles and make Battletech videos. You know?
That's the dream, dog. That is the dream. I had that exact same dream, so I know exactly how you feel. Oh, man, that does my nerdy heart good. Well, Adam, it's been a great pleasure having you here on the show. I look very forward to seeing what you do in the future, and I look very forward to having you back someday after you've gotten a couple other things going. Thank you so much for being on today, man. I greatly appreciate you.
Oh, I greatly appreciate being on. You know, when you first mentioned it, I was like, oh, wow, a Battletech podcast? Man, I wish I was important enough to be on something like that. It'd be so great if I could get out and actually talk about Battletech for a while. Too bad, you know, I only my channel is. And then you said, hey, we'd love to have you on. And I'm like, wow, really? Yeah. Awesome.
Absolutely, man. Like I was telling you earlier when we started, like, YouTube hates small channels, and I know that feel. So, like, anything I can do to help small channels get, you know, some eyeballs on them, I'm more than happy to do it.
Oh, yeah. You know, if anybody in your audience wants to come over, like I said, I always try to put lore with my Battletech videos. I try to make it so that it's not just, hey, we're going to be playing some Battletech and boom, 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 and that's our Battletech game. You know, that was one of the ways I tried to make my channel different and unique somehow. So if you'd like to escape the politics of the 21st century and get involved in the politics of the 31st century, come over to my channel and, you know, kick your feet back and try to get some cool lore in and a good story in, and watch me lose at Battletech over and over and over. So
fantastic, man. Coming up here very shortly, I've got a review on the BNC3E Banshee. I think it's going to be something different than what you're expecting. It's kind of a little bit of me being off the chain here, so I hope you have fun with that. And Adam, I'll let you go, but thank you so much for being on, man. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. It's been great, and I'd love to be back on again sometime.
We'll talk to you later, brother.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye. Today we're going to have a little chat, a heart-to-heart, if you will. Today I'm going to teach a lesson about perceptions, about min-maxing, and most importantly, about skill. Today we're going to talk about a mech that gets no shortage of hate, disdain, and clowns on the internet flapping their slack jaws, probably from inside the cockpit of such popular clown cars as the Mad Cat, or one of the more souped-up variants of Inner Sphere mechs beefed up with Lost Tech and advanced electronic warfare suites. No, today we're going to talk about a mech that doesn't need to rely on Lost Tech to kick your ass. A mech that's still useful despite it not being a lumbering weapons factory, bristling with firepower and not enough heat sinks to handle its own output. We're going to talk about the BNC-3E Banshee. If the BNC-3E were a person, it would be Bob Odenkirk's character from the movie Nobody. No frills, unassuming, and absolutely ignored by everyone despite being capable of dishing out a butt-blasting ass-whooping at the drop of a hat when provoked.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up.
In the mid-Succession War era, you were lucky to even have a battle mech of any kind at all. Mechs were put together with whatever parts you could sweep up off of the floor and cobble into any semblance of a working war-fighting machine. No one ever intends to snort cocaine out of a shag carpet, but it's the unfortunate side effect of addiction. When there's no other options on the table, at least good ones, you're gonna have to stick your nose in the carpet and hope Atlas doesn't shrug. Now, maybe you're the kind of person who picks whatever the best mech there is to use at any given time and pay no attention to things like cost, battle value, or availability of spare parts after a campaign is over. Not everyone has the spare change laying around to repair and maintain a Hauptmann or get in parts for a king crab. Let me guess, you're the kind of person who buys brand name cereal and makes sure everyone who comes over to your house knows it, so they don't even have a fantasy that you rock that Malto meal shit.
You're serving us gruel?
Not quite. This is crusty brand imitation gruel. 9 out of 10 orphans can't tell the difference.
Before I tear what's left of my hair out, let's take a look under the hood. For 95 tons, the Banshee clips along at a respectable 64.8 kilometers an hour at top speed. This is important because the majority of the Banshee's contemporaries that you'll often hear cited by people as things they'd pick in the assault class before they'd pick the Banshee don't. It also carries a chonky 15 tons of armor. Insofar as guns, sure, a lone PPC, autocannon 5, and small laser is nothing to write home about, on the surface. But let me ask you a question. What if you could have a mech that had a good combination of armor, maneuverability, and halfway decent, strategically placed firepower, and the ability to use it? With 16 heat sinks, even a critical hit to the engine isn't enough to stop it from continuing to be able to use its main weapons without too much, if any, concern over heat. And further, what if you could use your above-average speed for an assault mech to get into physical combat range and knock someone's fucking block off with your size of Illinois fists, or jam your humongous boots so far up their ass they'll shit leather and taste the sole for a week? Only 4 tons lighter in the armor department than the venerated Atlas, the Banshee's got the plating to soak up a good chunk of ranged damage that its patently decent maneuverability doesn't manage to evade. And when it's in your face, well, let me tell you a story. A single punch from the Banshee's battle fist is gonna pop your collar in a hurry if it connects with your cockpit, and it has a 1 in 6 chance of doing so. Twice. If it doesn't just backhand you like your mom for mouthing off on a Saturday afternoon, it's gonna leave a dent that will turn you into a convertible, where even so much as a lowly machine gun or an errant SRM could leave you through with money. That is, of course, if the pilot doesn't straight up choose blunt force trauma over finesse, dropping a 19-point kick with a -2 bonus to hit. Popular contemporaries in the era the Banshee was meant to operate in can't hack that shit without it being a serious red flag. However, this doesn't change the fact that one or two good slaps with the Banshee's PPC to the leg of one of the more armored enemies of the era would leave them ripe to have the Banshee's foot finish the job. The other thing you need to consider here is the Banshee is throwing down the DACA every single opportunity it has. While every single fucking mech on that list is busy cooling off after firing their main guns, the Banshee is still blasting away as it makes a slow and steady approach. Any mech warrior with a grasp of even basic tactics will keep himself relatively protected by speed and terrain on approach, and once it makes it up into close combat range, you're already in trouble. Sure, it doesn't have the flash and popularity of some of the other guys, but none of the other guys look as good in stunner shades, and they're all jealous they can't pull off the look. The Banshee isn't limited to fire support. With even a barely competent pilot, the Banshee is full of all kinds of fuck around and find out, with the advantage of being seen as benign by enemies who would quickly write it off as a non-entity. Until it isn't. For 1,422 battle value, you can afford to stick a pretty decent pilot behind the sticks without getting into ridiculous territory and tilting your scales past the point of being able to build a supporting lance that isn't full of smaller, less capable mechs just so you can say you have something beefy in a command role. So in short, the Banshee doesn't suck. And to the clowns, I say this: don't come at me with your weak sauce Polly Pocket Build-A-Bear bullshit. Get good, sucker. I need a drink.